You know, ladies and gentlemen, I had to play that for just a minute or two, and I can tell you that everybody out here watching, I'm going to include that link for the video. Tonight, my guest is a good Marine friend of mine. Happy birthday, by the way, Coy. And just want to say, Coy Pfeff is an extraordinary young man who I'm honored to say I've known for 6, 7 years. Um, Somebody with the dedication at such a young, I call you young because I'm old now, but dude, your dedication at such a young age to do what is right. And by what I mean, what is right is you have gone over the end of the world to bring back a beautiful 1943 PBY 5A, which I am proud to wear your shirt. Um, you give free rides to veterans, and you do a lot of historical uh, history teaching for young folks. So, do me a favor, introduce yourself, and how did you get into this, Coy?
Yeah, well, I mean, after the Marine Corps, kind of ended up with the PBY just by chance. I bought an old Land Cruiser and was trying to drive it around the world. I was over in France, and there was an owner over there that had a dozen or more vintage aircraft. And he was getting older and wanted to downsize and get rid of some of his larger aircraft. And so I met him, and we started talking about this Catalina and put a deal together. And then once I got back from Africa, we flew it home, which is some of what you just saw in that video. So we worked in France with a team there for about 6 weeks to get the aircraft ready for the crossing. And then it took us another 2 weeks to get it home.
You know what? I gotta be honest. That was the hardest decision. I couldn't call in sick because I was on standards, and I couldn't trade any of the trips because they had blocked these things out so far in advance. My One of my biggest regrets is not having taken that trip with you when you offered it. And oh my God, I wish I had gone on that. That is the most beautiful airplane. I've always been in love with the PBY, and ever since flight school, because in flight school we had PBY gate guard down there in Corpus Christi, and I love taking photographs of that airplane. At coming home at 2 in the morning, you'd have this beautiful fog and had lights backlit, and yeah, I love the PBY. That How long did that trip take you?
So 2 weeks. It was probably about, I think, 8 or 9 flying days, and then we had a couple of repairs that we needed to do along the way. And then one day that we just didn't go any farther because we were all exhausted, so we just stayed an extra day and then moved the next day.
So how loud? I mean, were you walking around always foamies in? How the vibration? What was it like flying
Yeah, I
the
mean, noise
airplane back?
canceling headsets is required. It's for that amount of time, it's very loud in that aircraft. It's not so bad in the back, but up front, especially right by the props, it rattles you.
Yeah, I mean, you don't realize the propellers are right over your head, right back here.
Yeah, and it was cold too. I mean, even though we did it in June, you're still in the North Atlantic, so you'd see temperatures outside of 20 degrees or whatever, and so you're still freezing up there.
What altitude were you all flying back at?
Anywhere between like 3 to 6,000 feet.
Wow. And there's no heaters on the airplane at all?
No, no, you got nothing. So we were wearing the lobster suits that you see in that video too when we were over the water. Of course, the dry suits, so that helped.
Yeah. Man, so what did the guys do in World War II? They didn't have any heaters or anything in those
Oh,
at all?
leather and wool, and a lot of their suits they could even plug into the aircraft, and they were electrically heated.
Ah, okay. And then you guys, I mean, wartime though, they would have a blister up on the nose, right? With 50 cal.
The
And
nose would have
then
been the 30 cals, and then the blisters in the back would have been the 50 cals.
okay. And now, were those operated up, or I mean, open, exposed to the air, or were they?
I mean, everything's kind of exposed to the air just because it's pretty drafty. But no, they had a plexiglass bubble that they were inside of.
And what'd you guys do for bathrooms? You have a little honey bucket back there?
We did, although I don't think anyone ever used it, luckily, so I didn't have to clean it out. But I mean, the other thing too that they had then was the full galley and all of that would have been installed, so they could have had hot coffee and all that sort of stuff, which would have helped.
Yeah. Did you guys bring coolers, or not coolers, but coffee craft? For
Not really,
catering. Or
kind of bottles of water and yeah, we didn't really prepare too well on the food side of things, other than the emergency rations and stuff in case we got stuck somewhere. But
man, so I mean, if you did, you could just put it down on the ocean, right? Theoretically.
well, that was the idea, and then we kept flying over and just seeing nothing but icebergs, and we thought, actually, that's not an option. We have to land down there. We're definitely hitting one of those.
And I mean, anything that the mechanic thought about, I need to take in case we do have to put down what he could work on. Is it possible to even work on the airplane while you're sitting on the ocean bobbing around?
Yeah, absolutely. We had our work. They're like these racks that hang off the cowlings of the engine, so you can work on the engines in the water or on the land. And those are, of course, original equipment to the aircraft. So we had, a spare fuel pump and spare generator and that sort of stuff. The only issues we had on the way was an oil leak, which we stopped in Iceland and had to drain about half the oil out of the tank to get to the point where it was leaking so we could seal it. And we had nothing to put, 25 gallons of oil in. And so we ended up using the FBO trash cans and filled those with our oil to store it in when we fixed the leak and then put it back in the engine.
Jeez, yeah. And what size? I mean, how many gallons of oil does one of the radial engines take?
A whole oil drum per side, so 55 gallons.
God, that's a lot of weight.
Yeah, it is,
And
and they were full, and more than that, it's really hard to get the engines warm with that much oil. They run really cold,
yeah,
so we ended
um,
up tape over the oil coolers to heat them up a bit.
jeez. And how much fuel does a PBY carry?
1,750 gallons, and we've never even had it full. I think the most we've ever had on board was 1,400 or 1,600,
And what is the range with that?
2,600 miles.
And so how many hours can you stay up in the air? That
It's
would probably be a good question.
23, 24 hours, depending on how you're running the engines.
23 or 24. So you actually weren't gassing. How many times did you gas going across?
Well, we never flew further than I think our longest flight was like 11 hours. So we stopped, probably 8 or 9 times.
And flying over, it's kind of similar to what they did back in the old days then, right? The
Yeah, pretty much
Keflavik,
the same route.
Greenland.
Scotland to Iceland to Greenland to Canada.
Damn. And where'd you go in Canada?
Goose Bay and then Trois Rivières, and then from there we went down to Michigan.
And was Michigan where you were doing the water test?
Right. Yep. Certifying
So
pilots. Yeah.
so does the airplane leak pretty badly, or does it hold
Oh,
her
it's
integrity?
it's always sinking. That's why we have bilge pumps. But I mean, every couple years we fill the thing with water and look for leaks and mark them and seal them, and it's just constant. You're always chasing leaks. But we got 11 bilge pumps, so we're not too worried about it.
Yeah, yeah. But if the airplane's sitting on the lake overnight, you got to have somebody out there and make sure that all of a sudden you don't wake up with a airplane sunk, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, the way they sealed them originally was between the aluminum skins. There's a strip of cotton in there that was soaked in zinc chromate, and when that was new, it worked fine. But that zinc chromate is all gone now, and the cotton is, rotten. Um, and so now it's left a sort of a gap in there that allows water to seep through around the rivets and everything.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
and so really the only way to fix that would be to drill out all the rivets and seal that seam and then re-rivet it. But we're not going to do that. So we just seal the seams of the skins themselves and seal around the rivets with sealant, and that's works pretty well. Good enough for what we need.
So, how many hours do you have on the PBY now?
Oh man, since we bought it, I think we've nearly flown like 400 hours since we bought it. 500 hours.
So, you have to be one of the highest rated PBY non-aviators out there.
Definitely, I'd say that I and my crew have more time on a PBY than. I mean, there's probably a few guys that flew in firefighting that are around that have more time on them than us, but very few people do. We've spent a lot of time in this aircraft.
Did you ever watch the movie Always?
Yes. Yep.
Whatever happened to that PBY? Do you know?
At PBY, I was actually at the auction for it. It was abandoned in Ephrata, Washington. Um, and then eventually the airport put it up for auction, and Yanks Air Museum down in Chino ended up winning that auction and taking it down there.
Oh man,
That was
that would have
this
been
year.
pretty awesome to have that as well. How does the PBY land? Is it squirrely on asphalt, or you know? I know it's got to
No,
settle.
it's just awkward. It takes a lot of input to fly, a lot of aileron, a lot of rudder. So you just get used to it. But I mean, once you have a pilot that's trained up on it, um, it lands fine, and it's a pretty stable aircraft.
It, I saw the control of the yoke. Big giant bar, two guys. I mean, does it take two guys to pull back on it because you don't have hydraulic assist on this thing?
Depending on what we're doing, if we're doing like air shows where we're doing really tight turns and maneuvers and stuff like that, you may see
Uh-huh.
two pilots with the co-pilot helping to fly. But most of the time, no. It's just
Really?
One guy flying and the other guy's doing all the radio calls and managing the engines and giving him all the power inputs and stuff that he needs.
Well, you used to have an engineer back in the day. So what, up in the pillar, in between the engines
Mm.
where the windows were, did he have gauges and RPM or
Yeah,
things that
I
he
mean, he
worked
had
on
like
up there?
oil gauges, fuel gauges, all the engine temps and pressures and all that sort of stuff. That was all up there. All the engine controls, cowl flaps, everything was up there. That all got moved forward when it became a water bomber because that area became part of the water tank. So you no
Oh,
longer had access to it. So everything is done by the two pilots now. Um, we will eventually reinstall the engineer station. We haven't decided if we'll make it functional or just put it there, because then
yeah.
you need a third trained crew member. And so now that's another expense that you have to pay to take this thing to shows. So we'll probably keep it all the controls forward that are functional. We'll just put dummy ones in the back to look the part.
That's cool. And how's the season shaping up this year for taking
Too
her out
early
to
to know.
shows?
Most of that scheduling is done in December and January. But
Uh-huh.
we have a couple shows interested already, and we're looking at some good sized trips that we're pretty excited about.
And what was the one down in Iowa?
That was when Trump talked about doing the 250th birthday party for the country.
Yeah.
Um, no one, that's, I mean, pretty much brand new, so no one knows what that entails, but it'll be almost a year long. And every state will have a booth and that sort of stuff. And so I assume that flyovers and air shows and stuff will be part of that. So, if that happens and all that goes through, I'm going to do what I can to make sure we're a part of it.
Oh, that's going to be so awesome.
Birthday for the country, like who wouldn't want to be a part of that? That's awesome.
Yeah. 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 Well, tell us about the foundation and Soaring by the Sea. I kind of alluded to what you do, but go ahead and tell us what.
Sure. So, I mean, our focus is, of course, combat aircraft and keeping them in the air, restoring them to their original condition, and taking them around as many places as we can to share them with people. So that's the goal right now. We have the PBY and the P40. The P40 will be new this season, and we'll try and take them to as many shows as we can. We do a lot of veteran outreach too with World War II vets or families of World War II vets, trying to take people for as many free rides as we can. We do programs for youth, trying to encourage kids in aviation with either Civil Air Patrol, Boy Scouts, STEM programs in middle schools and high schools. So just looking to do more of that as we continue and eventually grow and get more aircrafts and just keep going.
Well, I've got a photograph of the 100-year-old fighter pilot that you guys took up last weekend. Was it last weekend? The
I think
beginning
it
of the
was.
month, right?
Time moves so weird. I mean, we're so busy; it's hard to keep track. But yeah, that was an awesome experience. I mean, we took him in the P40, and I really hope to get him up in the PBY this coming spring when we get it back in the air.
I mean, Dick Heyman is incredible. 100 years old. Originally flew the P-38, got over to England, got transferred back to P-51s, and then he flew the A-26 in Vietnam or Korea, and then the F-105 in Vietnam. Just an incredible fella. And
He's got to be the saltiest fighter pilot alive. I mean, there's got to be he's got to be one with the most time in fighters ever. I mean, it's insane. 3 wars and yeah,
yeah,
absolutely crazy career.
I've got a picture up. I'm not sure if you can see it. I have you on widescreen, but I have a photo of the P-40, and Dick is in the back. You guys had gently got him inside, which was a challenge. At 100 years old, he doesn't move as easy as if
No,
he was 19 years old.
I've seen a few 100-year-olds or even 80-year-olds that move as well as he does, or still as mentally sharp as he is. It's incredible.
Oh, he is. He just talking to the guy, you could tell. I mean, he remembered everything. And when he landed, and this photo of him shaking Roy's hand,
Right.
he was so excited. It was like he was 19 years old again.
Yeah, he was a little hesitant getting into the airplane, but once we got him in there and he went up, he was thrilled. So I hope to do that for him as much as possible. We're going to try and get a friend over here with a P-51 to take him for a ride next year as well, since that's what he flew.
Yeah.
We'll do our best to coordinate that. He wasn't able to make it this time because of weather. That's just unfortunately part of it here in the Northwest this time of year. Is it's supposed to be sunny and clear, and it tells you that all week long, and then you get to the day and it's pouring rain. So it is what it is. Even the
Yeah, it was.
P-40, we had to cut it short. I mean, we were going to get you up for a flight too, but that rain came in and it was like, nope, can't do it. So
You know what? I can tell you this right now that to your hospitality and allowing me to stay there that night. I watched a couple episodes of Masters of the Air, sitting there with a PBY and a P-40. Lights are on. It's all by myself. I've never been more content and happy. I didn't have to go for a flight. It was just cool as hell to be sitting there amongst that kind of history. And tell us about the P-40. I've got a
yeah,
photo of it.
so this one, of course, all P-40s were built in Buffalo, New York. This one was built there in '43. It has some unique history about it that no one actually knows for sure why, but it has two different serial numbers on it. One on one side, one on the other, and there's a lot of theories behind that. But anyway, it was originally painted U.S. Army Air Corps markings. It was sent to the South Pacific, where it got given to the Australians, and they just throw their markings over the top. And then it fought with the 75th Squadron, keeping the Japanese away from Australia until it was damaged. It did about a dozen combat missions or so that we have records of, and then there's several months that we don't have any records for. We assume it was also flying. And once it was damaged, they sort of just pushed it off the side of the runway. They took the wing off of it and just kind of left it there, where it was abandoned until the 1970s in New Guinea at Taji Airfield. And at that time, Charles Darby went over there and pulled the airplane out, took it back to New Zealand, where it stayed in storage for a couple decades until 1998, where Pioneer Aero restored the aircraft, and its first flight was in 2000. And then it stayed there with a couple different owners until we bought it this last year, and its first flight was with us back here in the U.S. Since 1943.
Wow. It was impressive. It fired right up, flew great. You're going to laugh, but I built this back in high school. This was always one of my favorite airplanes that
Is that an N1? Can I see that again? Is it the E or the N1? Let me see the tail. Okay, so that's a E model, it looks like. Very cool.
It was done up as the Flying Tigers, but I hand painted the mouth and the tiger shark. Of course,
Great airplane. Curtis's first monoplane is such a good airplane. I mean, it is rugged as hell. It's, I mean, even when it was outclassed by the end of the war, because you got to remember that's 1930s technology, same as the PBY. Yeah. So by 44, 45, you had P-38s and P-51s and stuff replacing them, but it was still such a good airplane. They just sort of converted it into a ground attack role and used it kind of like a dive bomber and ground attack aircraft at that point because it could take hits all day.
Right. And those guys did a great job in, before we went into the war with the Flying Tigers. It was a proven asset against the Japanese, although the Zero could turn probably tighter above 10,000 feet. I think the P-40 could still hold its own, couldn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, their strategy there was, diving attacks on Zeros and stuff. They'd stay high and dive down on them and keep their energy, and then climb back up. And that's how they fight. Something else to remember about P-40s too is even against P-51s, if you're under 10,000 feet, the P-40 will outturn a P-51. It's the range that the P-51s had and the max operating altitude that really gave them the advantage that we needed at the end of the war. Where a lot of your fights are, at 20,000 feet. And the P-40 is just not going to perform up there. It doesn't have as big of a blower as or turbo as supercharger as the P-51 does. But the Allison engine is really rugged and durable. The Merlin puts out more power with the P-51s, but it's more finicky too. I mean, there's stories of guys flying those in combat that would burn through an engine in only 50 hours. And then the Allisons, they just kind of keep going and going.
Yeah, how is it getting parts for an Allison?
It's not bad. It's way worse for a Merlin, much more expensive. Allisons, they use them even now in like boat racing. They used them in all sorts of farm equipment and machinery after the war as well. So a lot of them stuck around because of that, because they're such a reliable high horsepower engine. Where the Merlins were more finicky, and so they were used less on farm equipment and things like that.
Yeah. And the guys down there in New Zealand, I remember visiting them about 22 years ago, 23 years ago up there in, was it Ardmore? Up there
Yeah.
on outside of Auckland?
Yep.
Yeah, the Auckland Aero Club is where I flew into Harvard, and they had a PBY. They had a black one. Do they still have that one down there?
They have a PBY. It's not in Ardmore. It's not black either. So I don't know if it's the same one and they've repainted it, or if you're talking about the one that is now in Australia that's painted black. I don't know.
Yeah, I'd
Or
have to
could
go back and
it?
look at my photos from back in the day, but I just remember they had a PBY out there, and they had all the PBY guys that worked on that. They were part of that crew, and then they had all the T6s, Harvards, and they had a P51. And I don't think they had a P40, but then we went over to the other side of the field where they were rebuilding the P40s, and that was something to behold, because they actually had the jigs made where they could build the wings, skin them, and everything, and they were building brand new P40s.
Well, what's cool about back then is most of the parts they were using were real parts. If they pulled an airframe out of some jungle somewhere, they'd take it all the way apart, inspect everything for corrosion. If it was clean, they'd put the original parts right back in.
Well,
And
how did they not have corrosion sitting out in the jungle?
I guess it just wasn't there that long, 20, 30 years, and a lot of it was still salvageable, or was just surface corrosion, and everything was painted, so it did pretty well. That's the problem now is any newly restored fighters, there's no original parts left. It's all pretty much remanufactured.
And
So
how
that's what's
much
cool
and how much
about having.
original is your P40 and PBY?
Yes, well, the PBY is very original. All the skin on it is original except for the mods that were made. Obviously, they took the turret out of the bow, and then the stair in the back. So that's not original. The right half of the right wing is not original. That was damaged in a crash. But the wing that's on it is actually off of an aircraft that's only one serial number apart, that they replaced
Oh,
it with.
that's
But the rest of it is all, the skin that flew during the war. The P40, from the guys that restored it, they told me the skin is about 50% original. They're able to use 50% of the original skins, and the
yeah.
components inside is somewhere between like 65 and 75% original.
Wow. And yours is like one of the only ones that you can actually mount machine guns or shoot machine guns in?
Yeah, no one really did that, so a lot of that hardware and stuff was lost. But this one is fully set up for it. So that's what we're working on now is getting all that process taken care of.
Oh, that's going to be awesome. Coming in 650 cows going off.
Yeah, we're still working on how we're going to be able to display that for people, because dropping shell casings from an airplane is kind of a sticky issue. Um, so we got to find a safe way to do it. But we figure, worst case, if we can't get a waiver to do it during an air show, like on a pass, we can still
Yeah.
taxi up to the crowd line and fire them there on the ground, and let people watch it that way.
We just did a Navy SEAL demonstration. They had the Navy SEAL demonstration team with Navy SEAL Foundation, and they had the 50s with the big BFAs on them. How do you guys put this BFA had like three
Yeah,
long wheels?
talking about, we use those for our ground guns all the time. You can't put those on an aviation one when it's in the wing of an aircraft like this. So actually, I'm going over to New Zealand next month to work with those guys there, because they have all that blank fire stuff, which they made, engineered it, and made custom adapters that fit into the barrel and that sort of stuff, to make these things function. So they're going to give us all their drawings and stuff so we can remake it all here.
And when you shoot it, will it be the 50 cal blank? So it's got the crimped in.
Right, correct. And we have
Wow,
our own custom blank load, which they're going to give us from New Zealand as well, where it's been tuned with some added chemicals to give a little more fire. So for the
Yeah.
crowd and stuff, they have something to look at.
That is so cool. And how do they clean that? The barrel, detach the barrel and then just dump it into a big vat? How do you do?
I figure we're going to clean it about once a season. You can service the guns to some extent while they're still in the wing, but you want to clean out the entire compartment of the wing and everything. So we have a gunsmith that has been hired to manage the guns, taking them in and out of the aircraft and making sure that the guns are cleaned and ready to go.
Wow. And so all that carbon does cloud up and build up in the wings,
Oh,
in the
absolutely.
bays.
Yeah, it's definitely something you want to make as part of your annual, and cleaning all that out, making sure you don't have any smoking rivets or anything that's vibrating loose. I mean, you saw the paint chipped off the wing on the rivets from the vibration from the guns. So it's just something you got to, another maintenance item. That's what it is.
Oh, I thought the paint chipping dents and stuff, that was from the shells.
On the bottom of the wing, yes, but up
Yeah.
by the barrels, if you look around there, all the rivets on the leading edge of that wing are chipped off from that vibration, all the paint off the rivets.
I didn't do that. I just put some little carbon underneath the
So that's
deal.
part of it too. Is a lot of warbirds are really pretty, beautiful restorations, like they rolled off the factory line. That's not the look we're going for. I mean, this aircraft has been flying 20 years now since restoration and has over 600 hours on it. So you got wear and tear on the paint. There's some stains here and there, exhaust stains and chips, and
It's gorgeous.
we love it because it looks like it just came off, a battlefield in the South Pacific. And so we want it to look real. If you look at modern military aircraft up close, they're not pretty.
Yeah. No.
They're dirty and glued together, and but they're tools, and so that's this isn't about doing an air show display that looks pretty or anything like that. It's about showcasing a weapons system. That's what it is. It's a flying gun carrier, and
Right.
so we want to keep that part of the history, its intent, alive and demonstrate it in that way.
Well, you're doing a fantastic job so far. I mean, I'm duly impressed. That is just beautiful. And you're talking, you can barely see down the side behind the exhaust. You'll have the trail of exhaust coming down, and it's beautiful. And it smelled great when he fired those engines up. We were standing back behind. Oh, that was awesome.
Yeah, it's
How about
Go ahead.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's funny. The video that I played, and I'll play it at the end here. Um, that video, I get so many comments about, why did you put music over top of the video? I want to hear the engines. And you're like,
Yeah, can't hear the engines. All you hear is wind noise. That's why there's the music. Because if we wanted to hear the engines, and we're going to be doing a lot more filming this coming year with a big focus on making videos and stuff for people to see. To get the engine sound, you pretty much have to get a sound recording on the ground. Because any camera outside the aircraft at that airspeed, it's just nothing but wind noise. Can't hear a thing.
what about a directional mic attached to the wing behind the engine, and high speed taxi or taxi around, stuff like that? So
That's what we'll do. It's just power runs and stuff on the ground, and get some of that drone that we can just play on a loop during the flights. It'll sound the part.
yeah,
If anyone has some ideas of how to actually get good quality, because even inside you don't hear the engines, you just hear the props, and so it's hard to get that engine noise in flight on the inside of the aircraft to come through cleanly. It's so loud that a lot of the mics we've used, even on the P-40 flights that we've done with a cameraman in the aircraft with a mic, it maxes out the mic, and so you just get this like static, and it's just too loud. So we might have to search some real specific audio recording equipment to handle environments like that with lots of wind and lots of noise.
yeah, it's pretty incredible. That is my most viewed video. I mean, I am such a tiny podcast. Got 3,000 subscribers on YouTube and another probably 2,500 on Facebook. But that video has garnered almost 315,000 views over the years, and that is my favorite video as well. And I get a lot. I mean, just constantly, daily, somebody will leave a comment about that video. Have you actually had time to go through and look at some of the comments that people have posted?
I scrolled through them a couple years ago, when it was at like 150,000 views or 200,000 views, and read some of the comments and stuff. But no, not recently.
Oh man, they love it. If you ever get time, you get bored sitting on the crapper one day, go through, but add some comments. Try to get more, draw more business over to your channel,
Well, yeah,
especially
that's
when you
what we
get these.
started this winter season is our YouTube channel. Of course, we just have Instagram and Facebook now, but we'll be starting YouTube and getting that going, because for us, like, we want as many people as are interested to be involved with this with us. It's not our aircraft; it's everyone's. Like, that's the point. We're a public charity, so we want to get everybody involved. And some people that live across the country, the best way for them to be involved is see it on YouTube. They're not going to travel all the way out here, come see it fly, probably. Some people have. I mean, we've had people come out here all the way from, Indiana or Michigan or New
Yeah.
York even. So that's great, but for a lot of people, that's just not doable. So to have a way for them to still be a part of it and put a big focus on media and getting all that out there is a goal that we have for this next year.
Wow. Well, you're doing a great job so far. And when the season comes up, I I am begging that I can grab my son and we could volunteer help, just to get a ride from one point to the other, and
Oh yeah,
be in the.
we always need help, especially working in the trailer and working in the airplane. Having a crew of about 8 to 10 people during a show is kind of what it takes.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, I've got that photo of you. I know that's you standing up on the wing. That lady, what was her name? She did the beautiful shot at the air show with the fireworks going off.
Yeah, Melissa.
Melissa. Melissa is super talented. Will she be going with you on some of these adventures?
No, she comes to some of the local shows, but when we're traveling, no. We have a few different videographers we've used this last year. And then we have one company that we've hired to sort of manage our socials and edit the videos and stuff like that.
Yeah, because I love this photograph.
Yeah, the wall of fire. Everybody loves that. It's a great
Yeah.
display.
And that's you standing up on that wing, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
Dude, you have a very distinctive a pose, the way your body, you know what I mean? Let's see, like if I show this one, you're standing back there behind it, behind Roy. Oh, there you are on the inside. Hey, so you've got six, two, four, six, eight airline seats.
Yeah, so of course the goal with the interior, this thing has been used for everything, from an airliner to a water bomber to a movie studio. And so all the military equipment inside is pretty much gone. So we are slowly collecting that, with the goal of reinstalling all the military equipment. So when that happens, those seats will go away, and we'll
Oh,
just have the
really?
original seats back, which will actually reduce the number of people we can carry, but that's fine. We'll still be able to take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 passengers.
So how many? I mean, do you have to have per regulations? Do you have to have a seat, or can you
You have
be
to
in
have a
the back
seatbelt.
and take off? You have to have a seatbelt.
You
Okay,
got to have a seatbelt. Yeah.
gotcha.
So when
And
it's restored, there'll actually be 2 seats in the blisters that have belts, which is where the gunners would have sat. Um, so when we get all that put back in, the 2 people will be able to sit back in the blisters.
that's awesome. You've got this poster, enlist in the Navy recruiting station. It had a PBY on it. My question to you: the original rondelle that you have on there, uh, when did they do away with that? Was that in the 30s
Shortly,
that they had that?
no, so this paint job that's on it now is a 1941 paint scheme. The
Uh-huh.
Navy requested we paint it like the aircraft that were in Kaneohe Bay during Pearl Harbor.
Uh-huh.
So it was shortly after we entered the war where they got rid of the red dot in the center. And then not long after that, they added the bars on the side of the star as well. Just sort of, evolved over the next 3 years.
I love this one the best. I really do. but it's probably not that tactical, you know?
Well, they were just trying to reduce confusion with other countries' aircraft, and so changing the shape they found was more important than changing the color. That's why they
Yeah.
added the like.
I
That's
get
why the
it.
P-40 had a white tail on it, because they had problems getting shot by their own guys on the ground. Mixing them up with Japanese aircraft and stuff. So they painted these big white tails on this P-40, so it was real easy for guys to distinguish who they were.
Ah, oh, I didn't know that. How did he get the name Princess of the Stars?
That was from 2 owners ago. He named it after his granddaughter. So we don't know what the original name of the aircraft was during the war. We know it was Aircraft S. But we've
Uh-huh.
not been able to find any records of a name or even any photos that are confirmed to be of this aircraft during the war. Um, so with our restoration, it does make it difficult to figure out what equipment it had in it and stuff. We have photos from the aircraft taken of it sinking the sub, but nothing of the aircraft itself.
Have you any crew members still alive that flew this?
No, not that I've found. We've had family members of those crew members come down and see us, but none of the crew members.
Oh, how about photographs? Have they family been able to provide old photos from
Yeah,
the war?
mostly it's of the crew, or it's the crew in front of an airplane. But it's usually like in front of the bow or something, and so we can't tell what number it is. So we don't know if it's this airplane or if it's just one of its sister ships that was in the same squadron.
And this
'Cause they,
one has an actual, no kidding, U-boat
yeah, we're the only
kill.
ones flying that have a kill. So this aircraft did sink U-boat 342, and we have some documentation from the original crew, like logbooks and pictures and stuff like that, but it's not as much as I'd like. I'd love photos of this aircraft where you can see the serial number, so we know, what equipment it had, what modifications they did to it, that sort of stuff. Even the original paint scheme, we don't know for sure because that squadron used 3 different paint schemes over the years that this aircraft would have been there, and so we don't know which one it was wearing the day that it sunk that sub.
And this belonged to the Canadians, right?
Correct. Yep.
So how many PBYs were manufactured total? Do you know?
I think just under 4,000, like 3,500, 3,700, something like that.
That's a lot. And how many are still flying?
6, I'd say, that fly, 5 or 6 that fly on a regular basis. There's 2 in Canada, uh, 3 in the U.S., 1 in England. That's kind of it. I don't. There's 1 in New Zealand, but I don't think they've flown in a while. There's a few others around that could fly but haven't in years.
Yeah,
But yeah, I'd say there's 5 or 6 that are pretty active.
that's amazing. Out of 4,000.
Yeah, I think there's
Wow.
only like 90 of them left at all, and that includes a smashed up piece of one in the side of a mountain somewhere. Just all known wrecks, everything. I think there's only about 90.
Wow. Have you wanted to go out to any of the wrecks to see if you could find some stuff, or are there any unknown wrecks that we can go adventure search?
Uh, I mean, there's the Tofino, Canada one. If you hike out to that, it's one that crashed in the trees out there, and that's been stripped of some parts over the years and has a lot of graffiti on it. But it's still pretty cool to go see. There's a couple in Scotland. There's really nothing left of, just some scrap bits of aluminum around. Some across the deserts in the U.S. Same thing. There's really not much left but engines. A few sunken ones in some places if you're a diver.
Well, see, I live on Eagle Mountain Lake in Texas, and that was a Marine Corps sea base for the PBYs and P-51s, or no, I mean the F-4U Corsairs would come in, but the PBYs would land on the lake there and then taxi right up the ramp into the hangars. And somebody told me a story that a PBY had crash landed on the lake, and it was just floating around. They couldn't salvage it or whatever, so they set the F4Us, took off with loaded, and they just shot the hell out of it until it sank. So I think it would be kind of fun to get a side scan radar and see if we can find this thing, and then see see what's left. I mean, it's freshwater, so there
Yeah, I'm
should be
sure
that.
it's all hard anodized aluminum on PBYs, so I'm sure there's a lot left.
Yeah, that'd be kind of cool.
Would be useful too if they let us dive and collect parts off of it.
Yeah.
I'm curious to see how much they stripped off of it before they sunk it, but back then they might not have cared. They might have just sunk it.
Yeah. It's a hazard. It's a blocking. It's blocking. It could float into the path of another landing PBY. Who knows? Man, maybe there's what are those gun turrets still intact sitting there
Yeah, or
to the
honestly, a
bow?
lot of equipment inside, like tables and chairs, and like that's the stuff that got thrown away and is impossible to find now. Um, all that little stuff. I'd love to have some of that help with our restorations. Otherwise, we're gonna have to make it from scratch, and that's extremely expensive.
What about down in South America? I mean, Lend-Lease things. Have you
It's really
explored the op?
kind of everything out there. People know about it at this point. There are a few, hidden collections of parts left. Every few years, you might hear about a small collection of parts that gets found somewhere and bought up. But it's been a number of years since anything like that has been found. It's just anything that's still out there, like crashed somewhere, is going to be so corroded by this point.
Yeah,
There's going to be really nothing salvageable.
that sucks. Yeah, I remember there was you get sucked down to YouTube channels, and there was a fella who took his whole family around the world in a PBY, and it crashed somewhere in a desert, someplace or
Yeah,
somewhere.
Saudi Arabia, I think.
Is it Saudi? Yeah,
I think so.
and I think that thing's still sitting out there, isn't it?
Yeah, and you've seen photos from it from recent years. The wing is collapsed on it. I mean, it's right on the beach, so it's salt,
Uh,
and
yeah.
it's just eating it alive. It's still there; you can still see it, but there's nothing on it that you could use anymore.
Oh, that
Um,
sucks.
yeah, um, it just is what it is. Luckily, I mean, the sets of drawings and stuff survived, so you can build everything. It's just the problem is they change these aircraft like every 20 serial numbers. So you have to get the original contract for your serial number, which is easy if you had one built by Consolidated or something. But this one was built by Boeing in Canada, and we don't have any contract number for it, any record of what that contract entailed.
Really? Wow, that's kind of bummer. And you would think that there would be more photographs of your bird out there.
Well, there probably are in someone's footlocker in an attic somewhere, right? I mean, there was a lot of cameras around, so it's just did it survive?
Yeah.
Um, and we hope as time goes by that more people know about us and find pictures and bring it to us and that sort of stuff. But if not, we have pictures of other aircraft that were in the same squadron at the same time as this one, and so we'll do our best guess based off of those aircraft and restore it that way.
Right. Well, I I hope that maybe people seeing this can definitely there's your address. People can if they know somebody who have family members, you know, eh, all these footlockers that are being discovered up in the attic that, granddad was a navigator or an engineer on a PBY. Who knows? Like me, I'm at a base somewhere and, oh, that's a cool airplane. I would just snap a picture and you've got it sitting in your collection somewhere. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, I've got your address right there. It's www.soaringbythesea.com. If anybody wants to buy some really cool swag, I'm telling you what, this is so comfortable. I love this shirt, and it's got PBYs all over it. They can buy any number of items. So definitely check their swag out on the website. And if you're able to see koi, hey, are you guys going to make Oshkosh?
No, we typically don't go to Oshkosh because it's just too far for us. It'd be like a $75,000 trip there and back.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
and the show doesn't pay. Oshkosh doesn't. So if we had a sponsor or someone that wanted to take us out there, then yeah, we'd more than happily go. But on our own dime, we're not in a position to do that. We put the money towards the restoration and the maintenance and stuff first.
Oh, yeah. Well, that makes sense. What about Rod Lewis? Have you had a chance to meet him?
I've not, no.
Do you know who I'm talking about? The guy down in San Antonio with the all the incredible World War
Lewis
II
Air
airplanes?
Legends. You're talking about Lewis Air Legends?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So don't they have that Super Connie?
Yes, he just
Yes,
restored the Super Connie.
right up in Aurora, getting the interior done. So I've seen that aircraft a number of times. No, I've never met him, but that Super Connie is gorgeous, and the interior they're putting in it is just phenomenal. I can't wait to see it finished.
Is that getting done right now?
Yeah, right up in Aurora. It's like an hour and a half from here.
Okay, because I saw it at Oshkosh last year, and that was
Yeah, the interior is stunning. I mean, full bar and like bedroom and all that sort of stuff. It's going to
right.
be a hell of a way to travel.
I just saw him at a he had sponsored a dinner in his hangar, and he had all the beautiful airplanes sitting out there, and his collection's incredible. I've I got to pimp his girlfriend again to try to see if I can. Uh, she was going to try to help me get Rod on a podcast, but he's a very humble, modest guy. I
Yeah,
just
well,
want him to talk about
well,
aviation.
so I
Hmm?
mean, if he ever wanted to do some sort of joint event or flight or whatever, I'd be more than happy to do that. There's so many opportunities out there. Getting to work with someone else that appreciates this stuff would be awesome.
Yeah, and that is definitely the guy right there. He I think he has the P-38 that was under the Ice Princess.
Glacier Girl, that one.
Yeah, Glacier Girl. I think he has her, and I know that he has two Marine. Is it F7F, the twin
Oh, the
engine?
Cats. That's a super cool That's one of my favorite airplanes.
Yeah,
Probably like top three. Yeah, those are very. No one knows about them, but they're such a phenomenal airplane. Super cool.
yeah,
Yeah,
and I mean they came in right at the end of World War II, I believe.
yeah,
Never
yeah.
never
They
had
were.
a lot of
Uh,
combat.
we're looking at bringing the P40 down to Texas next year. So if we get everything done in time and that trip happens, it might be a good opportunity.
Oh yeah, where are you going to bring it? Texas, Houston.
Down to Uvalde.
Where what's down there?
Uh, I'm probably not going to actually say much more than that yet until we get some things confirmed. But once we get some things taken care of, um, and a schedule locked in, we'll definitely put an announcement out about it.
Ah, well, I'd like to share that one. What is that the big announcement that you were telling me when we were sitting in the
No,
cockpit?
that's something else. That's for the PBY, and that may or may not happen. We're just kind of in a holding pattern on that one right now, so we'll see.
Well, you've done some pretty cool stuff. What about taking the PBY to Honolulu?
Yeah. So that was the 75th commemoration of the end of World War II. So we went over on the deck of the USS Essex, and then we're in Hawaii a couple months, doing all sorts of different flyovers and trips to Kaneohe Bay and dive operations and photo flights and all sorts of stuff. So
Well,
it's a great time.
how did they get your PBY? So you guys land on the water, taxi up next to the ship, and then
Yep.
they hoist you up onto the ship?
Yep. Pick us up with a crane and set us on the deck.
And they have a crane internally on the ship that can hoist you?
No, one of them on the pier. They have big cranes on the pier that can hoist stuff out of the water and then put it on the ship, and so we use those.
And how many cranes does it take to lift a PBY?
Just one. I mean, we don't really weigh that much. You figure like we were around 25,000 pounds when they lifted us that day, so pretty low
Yeah, but
on fuel and light.
it's not like they were designed to be picked up, especially in World War II. So
Oh yeah.
how do you hoist? Oh, it is?
No.
You have
Oh yes. There's actually two lifting points. That's it. Two little rings on top of the wing in line with each other, and you just lift it according to the original Navy manuals. They give you instruction on how to do all that and what type of lifting sling to use. And so we just did it according to the books, and it worked perfectly.
Really? And how
Yep.
many PBYs did they take down there?
To Hawaii?
Yeah, just 2, right?
Two. Yep.
And what was the journey like on the ship?
That's fun. I was on there 10 days and, didn't have any job to do. So I just wandered around and went up to the flight deck or up into the tower, up into the bridge, and learned all about the ship, made some good friends, and it was a great time. It's really cool to be a part of that.
So, as a young grunt, you spent time on a ship, but you were down in the hole, right?
Actually, I never spent time on a ship in the Marine Corps. So that was interesting to do it afterwards and get officers' quarters all to myself.
Dude, I spent 29 years in the Corps, and I only spent one night on a ship, and we were berthed down in the bottom decks there, like 6 racks to a row. Boy, I tell you what, that's definitely you want to be up in the officers' quarters for sure.
Oh yeah, no, I had a room to myself right down the hall from the ward room for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and it was great.
And so they hoisted you off the ship there in Honolulu, and then you just kind of took trips. And did you take any really cool VIPs up?
Yeah, we took at the time the Pacific Fleet Commander Admiral Aquilino flew with us. Admiral Whitesell flew with us, who retired out of the Navy as the air boss. We took a few, captains and colonels and a ton of different politicians, and it was right in the middle of COVID, so there was some limitations, but we did a lot for the military out there, as much as we could. Marines, Army, Navy.
What about any actual World War II vets?
No,
Pearl
they were
Harbor
going to bring
survivors?
a lot of them to that event, but because of COVID, they sort of canceled having the vets there, which I thought it was pretty stupid, honestly. Like, they're at that time 98, 99. If they choose to come, let them come, because it's no one has a right to be there more than they do.
Yeah.
No, there was, so the only ones that were there was the ones that lived locally in Hawaii. So that was too bad, but because obviously none of them are going to be left for the 100th. So, and they really
No.
only do this every 25 years, where they bring all these airplanes over.
Yeah. I mean, you think about it, it's at that age you're kind of just one light switch away from God. Go to bed
Yeah,
that night, turn the
we
light
did have
switch
some
out, and you
friends
just
that
don't
now,
wake up.
like their dad's flight jacket or some bit of memorabilia, and we would take that flying for the families,
Uh,
and stuff like that.
well, that's so cool, Coy. Is there anything that you wanted to pass along or saved rounds or anything I missed?
No, I mean, you covered it pretty well. I just want more people to be a part of this with us. So whether that's volunteering or helping out financially, or even if you just want to watch the videos and just really be a part of this, and keep this history alive, it takes more than just us. So anyone that wants to take ownership of this aircraft and work with us on this is welcome.
So if somebody's traveling per se up in the Northwest and they were up near Eugene, uh, could they set up an appointment to come over to the
Yeah, we
hangar
don't
and
have regular opening hours, just sort of depends on the day when we're here. But you just call, and we can usually make anything work.
what's the what? Is there a number
Yeah, it's
that
listed
we
on the
can
website.
Okay. So go to this website right here, soaringbythesea.com, and you can contact Coy and the staff out there and check it out. Coy, I am just going to say this. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. You made an old man very, very happy when you took Dick up, and I call him old man. Wow. Stud like Dick. And you made me very happy. Um, that was the most fun I've had, and it was so worth it. I can't wait to just pop up there again. Only I didn't want to sleep in the back. You offered it. I wanted to sleep in the back, but then as I was walking through the bulkheads, I thought, man, if I got to piss, and I fall out of this friggin' airplane, nobody's gonna know I'm dead laying there on your clean floor until the next morning when you came back to the hangar. But
Well, when we get ready to do flight training and ground school and stuff this next year, if you're not working, you ought to come up for that and do a little podcast about that or something.
I will. That would be a blast. I'd love it. Have to you tell me when I'll start bidding my vacation so I get some time to be able to do that.
Cool. Sounds
Well,
good.
well, brother, tell your family I said hello, would you? And your grandpa especially, and your cousin, and Emma, and everybody that's up there taking care of this great program. Your mom and dad. It's a family affair, isn't it?
Yeah, it's probably about half of us or so that are involved at some level, whether that's even just helping set up for events or whatever else. This is a huge volunteer program. I mean, dozens of volunteers is what it takes to make this happen.
Yeah.
So instrumental in that.
Well, I'm glad you're not closer to me because if you were, I'd probably be divorced because I'd be over there with you all the time. Hey, I'll take a mop and let me just sit there and, clean the floor. And, hey, where's Mitchell? Oh, he's over with Coy at the hangar. Yeah, I'd probably be divorced. It's worse than all the crap my wife gives me for out working on the Hummers. But yeah, I wish I was closer. I really do. Brother, I can't thank you enough for your time today. And let's do this again in just a few months when the season's been announced. And then that way we can promote, hopefully, driving people can, if you want to take a vacation to go see this beautiful aircraft, you'd be able to hook up with them at one of the local air shows. So until I see you again, give everybody a hug for me up there. And God bless you. Happy birthday, Marine. I know you had a good time this weekend.
Yeah. Happy birthday. Thanks, Taco.
Happy birthday. I'm going to drop us off. I'm going to play the rest of the video. It's about another 12 minutes, and I'll have the link to that. I have the link to your website, and everybody can go on there and visit and see all the photographs and all the history that you all have. So thanks again, Coy.
Yeah, thank you.
Hey, you have a good one, brother. Hoorah. I'll talk to you. I'll give you a shout in a bit. Bye-bye.
All right. See ya.
Hey, folks, I hope you enjoyed that a lot. I love this place. It is one of the most relaxing deals. And as an aviator, sit and listen to the engine of that P-40 start up. It just started right up and just chugging along. I've always loved the P-40, love the PBY. So he just happens to have two of my favorite airplanes. I'm going to drop off. I'm going to play the rest of this video for you. I hope you enjoy it. It's over on my YouTube channel, and it is 300,000 views and strong. A lot of people love this thing. So here's the rest of it, you guys. Enjoy it. Take care.